What up, everybody? Good morning and happy Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024. DK Show up on the air on your radio dials of 105.1 FM and 790 AM. Also available online, sportstalk1051.com, Google and Alexa home devices, the app, and the video stream up and rolling on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Happy Wednesday, making a turn already on this week. Appreciate you making us a part of your start if you're already up and at it with us here this morning. What do we got on the good old game plan? We'll continue to talk some green and gold as the Packers. It is Bears week here. We'll continue to take a look at that game. Packers will return to practice later on today as they get set to take on the Bears in the season finale. And of course, win and in. Win and they're in. We should get a first glimpse of maybe, kind of who's going to be available for the game coming up here on Sunday afternoon. But again, as a kind of a normal practice week with Wednesday, don't read too much into who's not practicing today. But I think a lot of Packer fans are hoping Jane Reed's going to be able to go. Maybe we can see Christian Watson doing some things. Well, Luke Musgrave, he's getting close to where they're going to have to activate that guy coming up here too. So, we'll see later on today. But also the return of Jair Alexander to practice. I'm not sure if the media, if he's going to have any media availability, or if Green Bay is going to kind of keep that on the down low a little bit there. But hey, I guess you never know at that point in time. But nonetheless, we'll get some updates later on today and such. But we'll talk a little bit about the pack, and I'm sure a lot of you have kind of seen some of the grades and rankings and all the love affair that has been coming down Jordan Love's way, and rightfully so. But maybe, just kind of maybe too, the man is playing at a level that kind of maybe for some didn't really expect at this point in time. I mean, according to Pro Football Focus, Jordan Love, highest graded quarterback in the NFL since week 12, which, if you're kind of wondering when was week 12, that would have been the Thanksgiving Day game against Detroit there. If you go back to even a week prior, about week 11, because everybody's got stats, right? We can make up stats for everything, pretty much. We could go back as far as we want. We could go to week 8. We could go to week 7. We can go with the term of like, well, from week 4 to week, 8, was he one of the worst? Yeah, probably. But we're talking about recency, trending upwards, improvements, that sort of stuff. Since week 11, Jordan Love is tied for number 1 in passing touchdowns, has the fewest interceptions thrown, which is 1. And if you add in that week 11 there with the Rams, second highest Pro Football Focus grade over there too. So, yeah, Jordan Love playing some pretty good football as of late. How much? I think too, for maybe some of the doubters out there, if there's still some for Jordan Love, I think you're going to start to hear can they win the big one? Can he win the big one? Remember, that was like Aaron Rodgers' thing when he first got going, when his career first started to get going there. It was like, well, can he win a playoff game? Can he win those games? And it was kind of hilarious because, '08 was his first year starting and went 6-10. Then in '09, they lose that playoff game to Arizona. Non-face mask call there. Don't think I need to remind everybody about that one. But then it was like the following year, they freaking won the Super Bowl. So it's like, whatever narrative can be thrown out there, I guess, for people to kind of talk about. But I'm sure that's going to be something for the talking heads out there. Is can Love win a big one? Can he win, a big game and such? And he's had a couple big games in the regular season, but probably right now, none bigger than this one coming up on Sunday because, well, as we know, this is pretty much a playoff game, win and in. So we'll talk some football coming up here. We've got some hoops chats. Bucks are back in action tonight, taking on the Pacers. The Badger basketball team picking up a win last night as well. They took down Iowa 82, dropping 82 points, or excuse me, 83 points. That's where I was getting the two from. But Wisconsin with the 11-point victory over the Hawkeyes to get their 10th win of the season and improving to 2-0 in conference play. 4 of the 5 starters for the Badgers, all in double-figure scoring, including Tyler Wall, who led all scorers for the Badgers with 19 points. Stephen Krall with the double-double, 14 points, 13 boards. AJ Storr, 16 points for that young man. Not a ton of production off the bench. Blackwell, the freshman, and Winter leading away with 5 points apiece. So, Wisconsin picking up the win last night. Now coming up on the schedule, they've got Nebraska on Saturday. Yeah, Saturday, right? Today's the 3rd. Tomorrow's the 4th, 5th. Yeah, Saturday, the 6th. They got Nebraska up there. Then Ohio State, Northwestern, Penn State. If you're kind of wondering, when's like their next ranked game, as of now, it won't be until February 4th when they take on Purdue. But rankings can change and all that stuff. But Illinois picked up another win, dominating win over Northwestern by 30. 96-66. So, we've been talking about Purdue, number 1 team in the Big Ten Conference, kind of a race for second place potentially. Illinois is going to be in there. Illinois is going to have something to say about that. Wisconsin probably be in there as well. Indiana's 10-3 so far on the season. Ohio State's 11-2. You look at a lot of these Big Ten teams right now, and as they're just starting their conference play, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, is it 8? 2, 4, 6, 8 teams already double-digit wins overall for their overall record. Northwestern, 10 wins. Minnesota, 10 wins. Nebraska, Ohio State, 11 wins. Purdue, 13 wins. Wisconsin's 10-3. Indiana's 10-3. Illinois is 11-2. So it'll be interesting to see how this conference plays out, especially when we get to conference tournament times and with all those buys and double buys and all that stuff over there too. So, but we'll talk some hoops, including taking a look at what's on tap here for the Bucks tonight. Thunder picked up a win against the Celtics last night. So 127-123, big win for the Thunder, but also helping out the Bucks a little bit in terms of the standings, if you will. Bucks now just 2 games back from Boston. Both Boston and Milwaukee 8-2 in their last 10 games. And then, for the Timberwolves' sakes, Oklahoma is riding a 5-game winning streak. They've moved to just 1 game back from Minnesota for first place in the Western Conference standings. Also on the docket for us this morning, it is stock report. So whose stocks are rising, whose stocks are falling. You can let us know by starting to text us on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line, 715-830-1912. 715-830-1912. So we'll get to that coming up at about 8:05. We got another edition of the Business of Sports over there too. But for that one, we're going to take a look at something a little different. So a couple weeks ago, the last one we did that, we were talking about, kind of incentives and contracts and incentives that are likely to be obtained and not likely to be obtained. We kind of touched on that, but I'm going to break that down in a little bit more detail because we are entering the final week of the regular season for the NFL, and you've got players now. Maybe if you've got social media, you've kind of been seeing some talk about this, and you're seeing some potential players getting close to earning some bonuses or incentives. Jordan Love getting close, Preston Smith potentially getting close to getting some more coin in their pockets, if you will. So, kind of want to break down a little bit more coming up at 8:05 with our Business of Sports segment, brought to you by Security Financial Bank. What exactly is likely to be achieved, not likely to be achieved, and how does it affect the salary cap? Because that's the big thing when it comes to the NFL, right? Is like salary cap. How does it affect it? Does it come off of this year's salary cap? Is it next year's? How do they figure out what how an incentive is termed likely to be obtained, not likely to be obtained, that sort of stuff. So we'll hit that up and try to explain it, or we will explain it coming up at about 8:05 here this morning. So yeah, I think that's where we're gonna go at. So why don't we get things going here this morning, right? Let's get her going here. Let's continue. It is Bears week, so let's continue to talk a little Packers, as the Packers will get set to return to practice later on today, getting set for their big matchup going up against Chicago. Uh, kind of some of you yesterday, and I've been seeing a little bit about it on social media and such, and even in our Facebook group, Man Cave Conversations. By the way, if you are not a part of our group on Facebook, there, Man Cave Conversations, it is a private group, but we got some good conversations going on over there. Big thanks to everybody who's been contributing over there. If you want, look it up, and got to get approved. It is a private group over there, but nonetheless, a lot of you kind of talking about, whether the season, regardless of what happens on Sunday, you view it as a successful season, and I think it's probably because a lot of the reasons are, Jordan Love and maybe really surpassing some expectations and such. But nonetheless, hopefully we're talking about a win afterwards. But do you already view this season as a success, regardless of what happens on Sunday? Regardless of what happens on Sunday, think about that for a little bit. Hit me up with the text here. Also, if you were Joe Barry, and I know probably some of you don't want to be Joe Barry, how would you come up with a game plan to limit Justin Fields or try to contain Justin Fields? And what I mean by that is, we know he's pretty dangerous when he's mobile and coming out of the pocket, right? That's where I think a lot of Packers fans would be a little bit concerned with Justin Fields. So what do you think is the key? How would you come up with a game plan to limit that mobility? How would you go about that? All right. So let's hit up a couple of things here this morning. We'll take that first break, and then coming up, we'll get things going on the leadoff. Continuing with Bears week, take a look at the final game of the regular season coming up in just a couple minutes. Speaking of the final week, don't forget it's the final week for our Pro Football Pick'em Challenge, and we got a tight one at the top of the leaderboard over there. Got a two-way tie right now. We might have to use the tie-breaking scenarios over there too. So head on over to sportstalk1051.com, and if you are a part of our Pick'em Challenge there, you want to get your picks in there right now. Garrett and Tim tied up at 169, but Peter, Tom, Darren, just a couple back as well. But it's the final week here of the regular season, so you want to make sure you get your picks in if you want to get some bragging rights and win that Pro Football Weekly Pick'em Challenge over there, okay? Again, it's at Sports Talk. I mean, if you made picks, you know where it's at, but again, reminders, it's at sportstalk1051.com, and then you just click on the win tab over there. All right, that's simple. All right, let's get things going here this morning on the leadoff. Bears week continues as the Pack will return to practice later on. By the way, since we're talking about the Packers, did want to mention that Ken Bowman, the former center for the Packers, those 60s teams, passing away at the age of 81. But just wanted to throw that out there in case you didn't hear. I know it was announced yesterday and such, but Ken Bowman, the former center with those Lombardi teams, 60 teams, Ice Bowl and such, passing away at the age of 81. So, but staying with the Pack, getting set for their matchup against the Chicago Bears. A lot of talk this week, and rightfully so, about one Mr. Jordan Love and how well the man has played. And I've kind of thrown it out there once in a while too, but you know, what's really impressed you the most from what you have seen from Jordan Love thus far? What's been the thing that has been maybe the most impressive to you? Has it been the poise? Has it been maybe you've just been impressed with his statistics that he's putting up? 3,800 passing yards, has a chance to go over 4,000. And when you put it into perspective there too, where, you know, the man finally had a 100-yard receiver, but, you know, it was Bo Melton in this previous game, but almost half that came on one play, and that was from Sean Clifford, who threw the ball. So maybe it's been him spreading the ball around. You know, what has it been that's really impressed you the most surrounding Jordan Love, or what you have seen from Jordan Love this year? If you had to narrow it down to just one, like the main thing out there, what would it be? I think for you know, to go through a list of things so far, I kind of thought, and we saw it in the stretch, about a month's worth in the early part of the season. You know, interceptions, would they be up? You know, just timing wise, and you know, guy coming in there first year as a starter. Really, to see a 30-11 line, 30 touchdown passes and 11 picks, that it is a nice surprise for me. But also too, when you look at it, I mean, just spreading the ball around and getting others involved and really taking what the defense gives you. This to me is exactly what I wanted to see, what I expected to see from an offense, from a quote unquote Shanahan style offense. Is like, I don't want to like downplay the performances from some of these youngsters, but it's almost like, regardless of who's in there on the offensive side, like regardless who's in there, you're still able to move the ball and you're still able to put up some points. And again, that's not to take anything away from a guy like Bo Melton or Jaden Reed or Dontavian Wicks or whoever, Malik Heath, whoever it may be out there. But that was something I think a lot of us wanted to see from the last couple of years. And I know that's one thing a lot of Packers fans want to see from one Aaron Charles Rodgers was to spread the wealth a little bit there. But to me, that's one of the things about this style of offense, whether you call it a Shanahan or McVay or a mixture or whatever, is to get a bunch of guys involved in it. It's almost like next man up sort of thing. Get them in there. It's kind of evolved, I think, from Mike Shanahan to Kyle Shanahan, because Mike Shanahan was in there with those Broncos teams. It didn't really matter who the running back was. Remember, that was kind of a I don't want to say joke or anything like that, but it was like, can you name how many different Broncos running backs that they had? And I was like, man, they're just having success over there. Whether it was, first up, it was TD, Terrell Davis. He gets hurt, then you throw in Clinton Portis, but then they're able to trade Clinton Portis and bring in Champ Bailey. You had Mike Anderson mixed in there too. Remember Mike Anderson from the Broncos? It just seemed like whatever guy that they were throwing in there, they were having some success. And 49ers were kind of the same way before they got Christian McCaffrey at the running back position. You kind of look at it from the Dolphins right now too, with their running backs, Raheem Mostert. Racking up the touchdowns, but they throw in different running backs in there, and they're having success. In Green Bay sense, it's like they're getting that success from the wide receivers, from their pass catchers, because you look at it from the Dolphins' perspective. They're led. They got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who get all the attention and the focus over there. But you got Mostert over there, Raheem, who is racking up some of the touchdowns, and kind of quietly, I think, the guy's gotten 18 touchdowns and over 1,000 yards rushing so far this year. But when you think of the Dolphins, you're thinking packed with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill over there. Same with the 49ers when, Christian McCaffrey obviously gets a lot of the limelight, but, you got a Deebo Samuel, you got a George Kittle, you got a Brandon Ayuk. All those guys over, 1,000 yards too, I think I saw. But that's what this style of offense, this Shanahan style of offense, you're able to, get a bunch of guys involved, spreading the ball around, spreading the wealth around, even looking at the Rams too, with what they're doing this year, especially in the passing game and such. Spreading it around. They got Cooper Kupp and such, but Puka maybe making a run for an offensive rookie of the year over there. So that to me is I think we're finally seeing it. It was a little frustrating in the first month or so of the season. The inconsistency, the ups and downs from this offense, but I think we're finally seeing exactly what we wanted to see with this style of offense, whether you want to call it the LaFleur style of offense and such, but this is what we wanted to see. I feel like now they got to go. They're getting it. They're there. It's not to say they can't get any better. It's finally what we're seeing is what we've been wanting to see for the last few years here. And I hope it continues to ascend, and I hope it continues to evolve, and I hope it just continues to get better at that point. But what has been the main thing, if you had to narrow it down, that has impressed you the most from what you've seen from Love so far this year? We can go through a bunch, but if I had to narrow it down, I think I'm going with the poise. For a guy with his first year, you could say all you want that he's been in the league for 4 years, and technically you're right, but to actually go out there and actually play instead of holding a clipboard or whatever have you, but actually going out there and getting hits and playing the game, I think the poise to me has been the biggest surprise that I've seen from Love this year. And you would expect it just to stay that good, or maybe even get a little bit better as the years go on. But I think it's been got to be that. That to me has been the big one. And I think too, just going back to spreading the ball around, I think for a lot of time for younger quarterbacks and maybe first year starters, they can get into a habit of like, okay, I'm going to go to the guy I trust the most. You know, if I got to get in that situation, I got to get a first down, or I got to move that ball. You know, I'm going to go to that guy that I trust the most here, so I don't screw up. You really haven't seen it. I mean, there's a couple stretches there where you can look at like the Raiders game and Denver and such, and look at those interceptions in the end zone to Christian Watson. You're like, oh, did he kind of too focus too much on Watson over there? But for the most part, the guy has just, spread the ball out and gotten everybody involved. So and I think that's related to that poise part for Love. But we mentioned it at the opener. Right now, since week 12, highest graded quarterback in pro football per Pro Football Focus. Whether you are a big time believer in Pro Football Focus or not, but Pro Football Focus with their grades, he is the highest graded quarterback since week 12. Since week 11, tied for the most touchdown passes, fewest interceptions, just one. I mean, this stretch of games since week 11, that's the Chargers one. It was the opening weekend of deer hunting to kind of put it in your memory bank there. The guy has thrown one pick. One pick. Think about that. That's taking care of the football. Yet still being aggressive, too. It's not just been a bunch of dink and dunks either. Man. Oh, got a few texts to catch up on here, though, before we have to take a quick break here in a few minutes. Join the conversation with us, hitting us up with a text on that Shoe Doctor's bullpen line, 715-830-1912. The thing that has impressed me the most, says Eric about Jordan Love here, has been his command of the offense. The guy looks comfortable back there, and it doesn't look like anything is rattling him. Matt saying it looks like the game has slowed down for him. And for a lot of quarterbacks, they can't say that it's slowed down this fast for them, as fast as it's been for Jordan Love. I expected it maybe to take the full year here, but it sure looked like it slowed down for him a lot quicker than many other first-time starters, and maybe even for some players yet in the league. This is from Ben. What's impressed me the most so far about Jordan Love this year has been just his consistency in terms of his personality. He's had some ups and downs along the way in terms of play, but he's remained consistent. Goes back to what David Bakhtiari said at the beginning of the year, when he said the one thing he really appreciated about Jordan Love in the huddle was just his consistency in his personality and demeanor. Yeah, that's a good point. I kind of forgot about that. When we go back to the preseason and such, and Bakhtiari was talking about Jordan Love, and yeah, he mentioned about Love's presence in the huddle and how much Bakhtiari kind of appreciated how he handled the huddle and such. So good one right there. That's a good one. Another texter here, no name, but texter saying the thing that stands out to me the most about Jordan Love so far this year is his numbers that he's putting up is by far higher than I think anybody thought, predicted, or expected from Love this year, especially with young receivers and Aaron Jones missing a ton of time because of injury. I honestly think that his numbers might be a little bit higher if his defense would have played complementary football more times than not this year. Interesting. All right. So let's take a quick break, but keep your thoughts coming, okay? Hit me up with some more texts, video stream, all that good stuff over there. Yeah, I think we had the music playing in the background on that video stream. I got to stop doing that over there. My apologies. But nonetheless, we'll take a quick break, but keep your thoughts coming. We got a couple more texts to get to here on that Shoe Doctor's bullpen line as Bears week continues. Another question I threw out there, regardless of what happens on Sunday, season a success or not, let me know. What's on your New Year's resolution list? What's some of your goals this year? If you haven't added getting a new floor from Carpet City Flooring Center on there, is it really a resolution? Is it really a goal list then for you this year? I think it's time maybe to upgrade a floor in your home, whether it's your living room, your bedroom, your kitchen, or even your own man cave. Maybe putting that together. Maybe that's a goal of yours this year is to get your own man cave out there, or whatever space, rec room, den, anything like that. Whatever the case may be, now that's the new year with 2024, and you're looking to upgrade that flooring game in your space. Look no further than Wisconsin's premier flooring store, Carpet City Flooring Center, right here in Eau Claire. Got the best of the best over there, top of the line, top quality, top service, and the team over there is just incredibly awesome to deal with or to work with. And you stop in there, even if you got some questions, just stop on in there, and they'll help you. They'll help you find that floor that'll be best in your space, best on your budgets. They'll work with you to find what works exactly for you and that space of yours. So this year, with new goals, new resolutions, if one of them is you're looking at maybe doing some upgrading in your home or maybe your workspace, and you're looking at that floor that's, well, you can't remember the last time it's been replaced, head on over to Wisconsin's premier flooring store, Carpet City Flooring Center, right here in Eau Claire. Fantastic partners of ours for many years now, and just I love those guys. Love that entire group over there. All right, we got about 14 minutes to the top of the hour here. A couple more texts to get to here. This is from David. What's impressed me the most about Jordan Love this year? A lot of things, but if I had to narrow it down to one, you kind of already touched on it, has been his poise. He doesn't look like the moment is too big for him. Even when he does make a mistake, it doesn't seem to rattle him. This is from Kyle on the texting line. I think what's impressed me the most about Love has just been his leadership. It looks like the guys really respect him and follow his ways, especially veterans like Aaron Jones. All right. Got the leadership one up there. Keep those coming. Well, we'll get back to some more texts over there at 715-830-1912. Some of you have mentioned it yesterday, and then I saw a little bit more of it on social media and even in our group page, Man Cave Conversations on Facebook over there. And one thing that has been kind of a common theme has been, is this season, regardless of what happens on Sunday, is this season a success? Regardless. What do you think? Because a lot of you said yes. If they miss the postseason, maybe so for some of you, at the beginning of the season, you had it so that you predicted that the Packers would make the postseason. If they don't, maybe you would deem that as not a successful season. That you wouldn't throw that into the that you wouldn't have that as a thumbs up type of season. That's fair. If you had those high expectations and they don't meet it, that's fair. But what about the rest of you? Regardless of what happens on Sunday, do you still view this as a quote unquote successful season? Now, I think majority of us, if not all of us, that are Packers fans are still hoping they get that win against Chicago on Sunday and get into the postseason. And for a younger team, maybe gain a little bit of postseason experience. But I think when, and I don't want to put words into the mouths of those of you who have said that this is a successful season, regardless of what happens. I think where the majority of you are going, or what you mean by that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is the emergence of Love, the emergence of the offense, the emergence of those young wide receivers and those tight ends. I think that's what a lot of you are referring to, is like when you say this has been successful regardless, has been because the offense finally looks the part. Kind of what we were talking about in the beginning part of the first hour, is that this offense finally looks the part. Because has it been a successful season because of the defense? No. No, not even close. And I think that's where when you say that, it's like, okay, we've answered the question about Jordan Love. He's the guy. He's going to be the starter. That that in itself successful because you don't have to head into this draft trying to figure out quarterback situation. Your receiver depth looks pretty darn good. All right, you very young. That was a concern heading into this year. The inexperience, but it looks like it's a talented group. Your tight ends looks like they're a talented group. You may have found your future starting left tackle with Walker over there now. Zach Tom has been holding down the fort over at right tackle. Elton Jenkins just kind of consistently doing his thing. So you've answered some questions on the offensive side that when we started this season, these were some of the biggest question marks out there. Those have been answered. But at least going into next year, those questions have been answered. And that's why I feel like a lot of people are kind of saying this has been a successful year because it's answered those questions. And I think for many too, we have the belief that if defense, and it's not to absolve the offense from their struggles that they had in October, because they did. They did. They struggled. So it's not to completely absolve them. But I do feel like that there's probably some out there that feel like you look at the Giants game for the one in Tampa Bay too. Defense plays better. They're already maybe into the postseason. Already have a spot, kind of in a position where maybe the Rams are at right now. But that's why I feel like a lot of people kind of view this as a successful season, regardless of what happens at this point in time. So, hey, I want to throw this out here too. I don't know if any of you are riled up about this or not. I'm not really riled up about it, but there's some. So, former friend of the team, Aaron Charles Rodgers, yesterday on the Pat McAfee show, was talking about this Packers and Bears matchup and referred to the Packers as us, like he's still a part of the team. And said, Matt LaFleur hasn't, or he kind of said, I'm paraphrasing, that this is their Super Bowl talking about Green Bay or talking about Chicago, and that, Matt LaFleur has never lost it to the Bears, and was saying, if they can't beat us, is it a rivalry? Throwing a little shade to the Bears over there, throwing a little shade to Chicago. And to me, I was like, okay, cool, whatever. He's still and he said positive things about Green Bay all season. But there's been big chunk of fans, a big chunk of fans who have had issue with Aaron Rodgers using the word us. A big issue. And I gotta ask you, do you care? Do you care about that? Does that bug you that he used the word us? Because it didn't bug me. If there's one thing that I'm cool with is like, you know what? It was a breakup. Each side is cool. We don't have that drama between each other right now. We don't have that hate, that angst, or whatever. But man, there was a lot of people, and this just could be the dark hole of social media and the dark hole of Twitter. But boy, was that just a lot of Packer fans had issue with Rodgers saying us. Yeah, he's technically not on not on the Packers. I get that. I understand that, but man, a lot of people are just ready to cut him off. Move on. That sort of thing. But were any of you like upset that he used the word that? I mean, come on. I don't know. Do you think Rodgers wants to still be a Packer and maybe regretting his action? I mean, he's mentioned that he regrets how he did some things in Green Bay, which I know we've talked about that before, and I would love to read the tell-all book of what kind of things he's referring that he regrets at this point in time. But I don't. He's always said he's a dude that doesn't, regret anything or doesn't live in the past or, doesn't really like that doesn't. How do I want to phrase this? He said he wishes he would have done things differently in Green Bay, some things differently in Green Bay, but I don't think he regrets going to the Jets. I don't think he regrets that. And I believe him when he says that because I think that's his mindset. I think he feels like, yes, there was things that he would do differently or would have done differently towards the end there. But in terms of like, does he regret going to the Jets and being a part of that team? I honestly don't think he does. I don't. And I don't think Green Bay regrets moving on from him either. They've got some questions answered with their quarterback position. So, did find it funny. We were at a local store the other day, and the cashier was talking to my wife about the Packer game and how Rodgers wants to come back to the Packers because the Jets are going to release him, and that the Packers don't want him back, so he wants to go to the Vikings, just like Brett Favre. And my little guy Hutsy spoke up and said, "No, he doesn't." I was like, "That's my boy." I stayed out of that conversation, completely stayed out of that one, but that's my boy Hutsy speaking up and saying, "No, he doesn't." That a boy Huts. All right, coming up next hour, we'll talk some hoops. We've got Badger basketball picking up another win last night in conference play, taking down the Hawkeyes of Iowa. We'll hit that up. We've got Bucks tipping off tonight against the Pacers as well. We'll hit that up in a little bit of a preview. But we'll finish up with Morgan. Good morning, Morgan.
Well, hey, good morning. I know you're talking about Rodgers using the word us doesn't bother you.
No.
What do you think?
Why should it bother people?
It doesn't bother me either.
Yeah.
I mean, fan of Rodgers or not, there are plenty of other things that could irritate you about Rodgers, not having to worry about whether or not he's using the word us.
Yeah.
But when it comes to overall sports, what do you think is the most independent and then the most team-oriented sport? Like, what's a truly independent sport where
Golf.
it is golf? I would say bodybuilding. Like that's,
Okay.
but
golf, tennis, that sort of stuff.
Okay.
Yep.
Pickleball.
No, you're on teams though, aren't you?
You are on teams,
Yeah.
so that's less independent. What's the most team-oriented sport? Are you gonna
football?
You think football over basketball?
Mm-hmm.
Because basketball is becoming more of a me sport.
Well, basketball, you can change. I mean, one player can make a complete difference on a squad, like a LeBron James or even a Giannis. And that football, to me, is the ultimate team sport because a quarterback's only successful as if his offensive line is protecting him,
Right.
if he's got a running game, if he's got receivers and such defensively. I mean, you got two sides of the ball there, different players all across the board. Whereas at least basketball, you have to play offense and defense. So you're relying on others to help out your cause. So, yeah, I think football is the ultimate team one.
Over baseball?
Yes.
Over hockey?
I would go –
rank them.
I would go football, baseball, hockey, basketball.
Okay. In orders of team.
Yep.
Okay. Then as far as we're talking sports, what sport do you think trains the hardest? What athletes do you think train the hardest? And this is where you get like into pushing some big feelings on people because obviously a lot of sports hustle, but there's standing around in baseball, let's face it. I mean, softball is Siggy's favorite sport, but half the time that she's playing second or shortstop, she's standing out there. Well, it's not as active as something that's constant, like soccer. I mean, you got to talk about soccer too.
At soccer, I'd put up pretty high in team sport.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'd probably put them at 2 or 3.
A lot of rugby players would argue.
Suck up to Sam on that one.
All I'm saying is rugby's pretty dang physical.
Yeah.
What do you think if you had to fire it off? Athletes that train the hardest, top 3.
Because it's.
You got to include things like strongman though, because that's a really intense training regimen.
Open.
Yeah, but if you're pulling a truck, you're training hard.
Oh no,
bodybuilding. Whether or not it's an independent or team,
I'm saying it's like wide open because I know I'm going to forget one and I'll get yelled at.
Well, yeah, but that's part of the fun. Yelling at you is a team sport. Come on, guys, let's rally.
I mean, yeah, it would be those individual sports, I think, like that.
Like bodybuilding.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Gymnastics,
Yeah, there you go. I think
Wrestling.
Simone Biles would agree.
Wrestling.
Gymnastics is a good answer, actually. That's a tough training regimen.
Especially because they're so young and you have to like develop
Yeah.
into that.
Olympic lifting, that's really intense too. You're putting a lot of strain on a lot of places.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll go Olympic sports.
Okay, Olympic
Because they're
sports.
doing that all year long, downhill
It's
skiing.
their job.
Yeah. Second hour kicking off on this Wednesday morning, January 3rd. Appreciate you tuning in wherever, however, you may be tuning in from. Coming up here, we're going to talk some hoops. Badgers picking up another conference win last night against the Hawkeyes of Iowa. The Bucks are back in action tonight as well, taking on the Pacers again. We'll take a look at that and preview that, all that good stuff. We've got stock reports that are going to be due at the back end of this hour. So whose stock is rising, whose stock is falling. You can text us with your picks on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line at 715-830-1912. Then coming up in about an hour, a little under an hour from now, we'll do another segment of the Business of Sports, brought to you by Security Financial Bank. Let's do some sports nuggets of the day, though, to kick off the second hour here. The 1941 National Collegiate Football Rules Committee announced a new rule that permitted free substitution of football players. Think about that. That wasn't that long ago. 1943, for the first time in NHL history, a goal with 3 points all came from the same family. Reg Bentley scored with assists from his brothers Max and Doug. Let's go with Tony Dorsett in 1983 with the Cowboys, made the longest run from scrimmage in NFL history. Dorsett ran for 99 yards. That's been tied a few times afterwards. Wayne Gretzky in 1991 scored his 700th goal. We got this day in 2010, Chris Johnson set the NFL single-season record for yards from scrimmage. He finished the season with 2,509 yards. And same day, same year, Tony Romo set a team record when he took every snap for the entire regular season. Those are just some of your sports nuggets of the day for this morning. Quick note, too, last night on the prep side, I know Brandon will probably be breaking this down for us on Friday. But hockey-wise, you had Memorial in a crosstown rivalry going up against North. Memorial dominating 9-0 in hockey. Memorial improved to 3-2 in Big Rivers Conference play. Other scores from the BRC hockey world: Chippewa Falls defeated Menominee 6-3. Hudson taking down New Richmond 6-4. Rice Lake in overtime defeating River Falls 4-3. And I know we had some non-conference hoops action, both in boys and girls basketball last night too. But speaking of basketball, Blue Golds begin WIAC play tonight. Both the women's and men's team taking on Platteville. Platteville actually ranked number 24 in men's basketball. So we'll have a new episode of the Rollin' with the Golds podcast. We were off last week because of the holiday break, but we'll have a new episode of the Rollin' with the Golds podcast up tomorrow morning. All right, let's talk some hoops here this morning. The Badgers picking up a win against Iowa last night against the Fighting Fran McCaffreys of Iowa to improve to 2-0 in conference play, 10-3 overall. But when you look at the Big Ten Conference standings right now, you got a few teams. We kind of talked about with RJ yesterday, RJ Cardinal, our Badger analyst, and kind of throw out, would it be a kind of a race for second place? With Purdue sitting at number one, a lot of people just expecting them to take care of business in the Big Ten. But you got Illinois, who's a top 10 ranked team, and they defeated Northwestern by 30, a Northwestern team who did defeat Purdue. But you look at the Big Ten Conference standings right now, and there's quite a few teams. They may not be all ranked, but there's quite a few teams right now with double-digit wins overall. Illinois 11-2, Indiana 10-3, Wisconsin 10-3, Purdue 13-1, Ohio State 11-2, Nebraska 11-2, Northwestern 10-3, and even Luke Anthony's Minnesota Gophers sitting there at 10-3. Noted Michigan State is at 8-5 right now. But be kind of an interesting conference schedule to watch now that the Big Ten hoop season is going to be fully in conference play, to see that race, and especially when it comes to the conference tournament and the seedings, who's going to get the buys, the double buys, and all that sort of stuff. But I'm going to be fascinated to see this conference play. How are your Gophers going to be? What that 10-3 record there, Lucas? How are your Gophers? Are they going to be a team to watch?
No.
Could they make no? So that 10-3 is nothing. Doesn't mean anything right now.
I don't factor it. This would be one of the most shockingly good seasons ever if they managed to compete for the NCAA tournament. This is totally off season, like the preseason, if you will. That's what it was. This team got again totally run through the ringer again through the transfer portal. I don't know if Ben Johnson's going to be able to hold on for a year after this as a coach. It's just like a non-program at this point. And I know I'm talking about a 10-3 team right now. It's like, why are they even bothering? Well, and they already have a Big Ten win, which when they got that, I was like, congrats. At least we got one this year. Again, maybe the talent is there. Dawson Garcia is a really good player. It's just not that much around him. That's the problem. They're having a tough time. The in-state talent keeps going east, keeps going elsewhere.
Keeps going to Wisconsin.
That's the thing, right? The pipeline is still alive and well, and I don't think Minnesota is going to be a challenger at all. But maybe it's a surprise. Maybe something totally gels. I always leave that possibility out there. I mean, if you're looking at all of these teams, I know Nebraska's like right on the bubble of the tournament. If right now Northwestern would be in as a 10 seed is the latest bracketology.
We're already talking bracketology.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, Wisconsin's a 4 right now. Illinois. Illinois got a bit of an issue with that. One guy's probably not going to be playing for them much longer, so I don't know if that 9 ranking is going to be anywhere close to that long term. But yes, Purdue, Wisconsin, yes, they will hold around. There are enough others that'll be in the race for second. I actually think it's more of a race for third. I really could see Wisconsin potentially settling in number 2. Potentially.
Is it because of the Shannon Jr.?
Yes.
Up in the air?
Totally what happened with Illinois. Mm-hmm. Totally Shannon with the charges.
Yep.
Yes. That's it. Otherwise, then it's more of a race. And again, like I said with the Gophers, you never know. Maybe there's some team that like in the case of the Fighting Illini, and they can pull themselves together and go all Ewing theory. Doubtful, though.
Mm-hmm.
He's the main reason why they're as high as they are. And without him, that's not going to be the case. I really do think Wisconsin is probably going to be, like, I would pick them as the favorite to be number 2 in the Big Ten.
Okay.
Which, and that also doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a 3 seed either. I could see them falling to maybe a 5 overall, but probably not too much further down. Like, they seem to have settled in. Like how confident do you and RJ feel about them sticking kind of where they're at quality-wise, maybe around the top 25, maybe bouncing 4 or 5 seed in terms of bracketology and those kind of projections?
For Wisconsin?
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking at the schedule the other day there, and if you go based just off of ranked opponents, which I know you can't, you fully can't do that. The next ranked game they have is Purdue coming up next month.
Yeah.
So I feel like I like this Wisconsin team. I don't think they're going to be a Final Four team by any means, but they're a fun team. AJ Storr is just this. I've been on that bandwagon since right before the season began. Stephen Kral looks like he's gotten better, getting a double-double, most rebounds he's ever had, 13 last night against Iowa. So I like the makeup of this team, and I think they're going to be like that 4 or 5 seed. I think they're going to consistently, maybe they'll get into the top 20, but I think when it's all said and done, rankings don't matter. It's all about seeding at that point, and I think they're going to be around that 4 or 5.
Well,
it's all said and done.
They also don't seem to be a one-dimensional team.
Mm-hmm.
Like last night, a lot of inside success, going to the foul line a lot. They're striking me as somewhat, I say somewhat, multifaceted, but I say somewhat because they're it's not like every way they can succeed. But this is not like it's not a Princeton offense type of team. It's not a 3 or else type of team. It's not one guy. If he gets shut down, then the team is done. It's not like that at all. That's at least the impression I'm getting, because usually you look back through and how did the game go here, and they won this way. So today was Storr. Today it was Hepburn. Now Hepburn's back after a while, but the point being, Wall is going to go to the line a lot. It's someone else all the time, which I think that's more beneficial. That there's not. I don't know that there's a read on how you beat this Badger team. That they don't have the talent of a lot of the really good teams, but they're not predictable.
I think they are a Sweet 16 caliber team.
Yeah.
A team that can win you 2 games in the tournament. And then it might get a little tricky. Just it solely depends on who they play after that. Yeah. But I see this as a team that, if they're a 4 seed, they could beat their 13 matchup, and then they would play the 5th seed in the next round. Mm-hmm. I think that's a team that they can I think that bare minimum is like a Sweet 16 appearance. Goal-wise, if you want to say, like their bare minimum goal should be at least for a fan perspective. Their goals are obviously a lot higher, but I think they're a Sweet 16 caliber team.
Here are the teams, again, to look at that bracketology. Purdue is right now a 1 seed, no surprise. Northwestern, like I said, they're a 10. By the way, Marquette's a 2. Wisconsin.
Do you have more confidence in Marquette or Wisconsin getting to a Sweet 16?
Interesting.
And I say that because I know Marquette is ranked high, but do you trust them?
And they haven't fully proved it this year. That's a fascinating question. Like I can't I should have been able to say Marquette easily. I'm still going to say Marquette because their ceiling is higher. Mm-hmm. But Wisconsin seems to be all over the place when it comes to the tournament. I mean, we've seen so many immediate outs and then put together a mini run. I don't know what to expect, especially this team. I'll say Marquette barely.
Yeah.
Quickly, I also see, let's see, right now Wisconsin would play McNeese State for what it's worth. Auburn right now is a 5 seed, if that's any indication of what's out there. Michigan State would be an 8. Illinois would be a 3 right now. Indiana would be a 12 as an automatic qualifier, and the Ohio State would be an 8 seed. I think that covers all the ones that are in there. I might be missing one, but yeah, there you go. Nebraska would be in the plan. Sorry. They'd be playing Utah State right now. So right now Big Ten has the second most, 8 behind the SEC.
Kind of just chalk again. Just
pretty
seems
much.
Like that's almost every year.
9 SEC, 8 Big Ten, 7 Big 12.
I was going to say Big 12's got to be around there too. Yeah. So, but yeah. But this is the second half of the season now too. This is where you bring up bracketology. It kind of means a little bit more now, I think, because we're in that January now. We're all in conference play here. So,
and I know, and
who's the one Big Ten team though that you think could play spoiler for some teams? Is that Michigan State?
Yeah. Because the quality of the coach is going to get around the quality of the players. Always. I never I just know that as long as Tom Izzo is the coach of Michigan State, and then probably even for the next 5 years after that, I'm still going to be used to it regardless of their coach. I'm going to presume that Michigan State is just I assume there's going to be a loss, which is why that Badger win was what? And then you look at how Michigan State's actually been doing this year. You go, okay, well, it actually made sense that the Badgers beat them, but it felt shocking. Didn't it? I think most people around here were like, whoa, how do they do that? Well, yeah, but that's because Michigan State's proven it over decades of the quality. So they're the one.
Yeah. Before we take a quick break here and talk a little NBA action, got to mention, since we're talking Big Ten, Caitlin Clark doing Caitlin Clark things again last night. If you didn't see it, it was tied up 73-73 Iowa, Michigan State. She gets you get the ball in her hands, and then she takes a step back from the logo, nails a game-winning 3-point shot with 0.1 seconds left when she fired that off too. So I said it last year. She's I think probably the best female, or not even just female, one of the best college basketball players I've ever seen. She just shoots the lights out of the gym. She is so fun to watch. If you have not watched a game with her, do it before it's too late, on the college side of things. Go watch her play, or watch her, turn on the TV if you see an Iowa basketball game on. She's fantastic.
Yes. It's very, very much worth it. I'm trying to see their schedule because I think Iowa was already at the barn.
Yeah, I know they were at. They played Wisconsin a little bit earlier too, but
no, I'm wrong. That game was down in Iowa City. The Gopher game. Okay, that's going to be a hot ticket, folks. In case you're like, oh, I'll just hit. Good luck. It's actually February 28th. So if you want to see Caitlin Clark in person, there you go.
31.5 points per game she's averaging. And for anybody who's saying that's so ball hog, she's also 5th in the nation in assists. 7.4 assists a game. Boom.
Can the Lynx like trade a whole like half their team so they can draft her high?
Yeah.
And we could have Caitlin Clark playing over at Target Center for the next like 7 years. I mean, seriously, that would be pretty cool to be like, oh, hey, Caitlin Clark's playing like an hour and a half away in the pros.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to happen. Someone else is going to. The Lynx are not in position to do that. But gosh, everyone wants to draft her, and there are plenty of other good players. But it's that outside shooting. You're just like it's the wealth. You know what? It's kind of like she's basically the Steph Curry of women's basketball.
Mm-hmm. She is.
It's the total comp. She is Steph Curry for women's basketball right now, and where there are plenty of other good players, but it's the style that draws people to her. Like there was a style of Steph Curry that drew so many people to him in the first place. Same thing.
Yep, absolutely. But she did it again. Another highlight last night. So if you didn't see it, then you're not watching anything. But go
and
start
watching Iowa games whenever they're on. Just do it. You'll be glad you did.
Yep, exactly. All right, let's take a quick break, and then coming up, let's talk some NBA hoops. Bucks back in action tonight. Things are getting a little bit closer for Luke's T-Wolves in the Western Conference. OKC with a big win last night over the Boston Celtics, which helped out the Bucks a little bit, but made things a little bit closer in the standings in the Western Conference. T-Wolves now up 1 over the Thunder for first place. We'll talk some NBA action coming up in just a few minutes. Bucks and Pacers tonight. Tip off at 6 p.m. You can catch that game on 105.1 FM and 790 AM. If you feel like Bucks and Pacers have played a lot this year, it's because they have. If you're just looking at the regular season series, Indiana leads 3-1. Then you got the play-in series over there as well. So Indiana's kind of sort of had the Bucks number here so far, but we'll see how tonight's game turns out. Don't know if you've gone down the dark webs of the Twitter sphere lately, Bucks Twitter sphere, that is. And there's been some talk about Damian Lillard and his defensive play a little bit more here. We knew there was going to be a fall in defensive play when you go from Drew Holiday and Damian Lillard, but saw a lot of people talking about a particular play against Indiana the other night where it looked like Damian Lillard was kind of looking towards the sideline, and then Pacers player had a free pass to the hoop for an easy layup sort of thing. And there was some chat about whether Adrian Griffin should have a chit chat with Damian Lillard, saying, because he's kind of been inconsistent with some of his shooting this year. I think that's fair to say, right? Mm-hmm. Damian Lillard with the shooting percentage. Yeah. If he's going to be struggling from the field shooting wise, is it worth it to have him out on the court because of his defensive play? I think that's a little extreme, but I don't know if they would ever have that conversation. But you got some fans out there saying that right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw that and I'm like, okay. So no offense, but is Cameron Payne a better option at this point? I don't know. I wouldn't say so. I'd still rather have Damian Lillard out there at this point. I mean, you knew what you were getting when you were trading Drew Holiday off for Damian Lillard, right?
Yes.
We should have expected this. We should expect this.
Right.
So I don't know. Is it again just the super high expectations for this team this year?
Yes.
That we're nitpicking everything?
Of course. I mean, I was pondering, do I want to look at the responses after the Bucks lost to the Pacers the other night and see the immediate, we have to fire Adrian Griffin right now? Like I think Bucks fans are primed. Was there a lot of that after that game?
I don't know if it was necessarily that. I think there was more towards Damian Lillard again.
Yeah.
At this point.
Okay, that's in a weird way kind of good. Like I not that I think Adrian Griffin is perfect, but
by the way, what do you make of the new assistant hiring?
Good.
You like it? Okay.
I do. I think
I know it's a little old, but I want to get your thoughts on it.
It's veteran presence. It comes from, I guess, the Nick Nurse universe, for lack of a better term. I had Paul Henning on last week. Bruce City Bucks, who was Save Our Bucks. He's Bucks super fan. He was high on the hire, and he was. I don't know if anyone's seen his Twitter feed, but he was extremely down on Adrian Griffin earlier this season. But he thinks that hire is good. This is going to help. Part of it's a matter of who are you going to find to replace Terry Stotts? Well, find someone and this should help stabilize the team overall. Yeah. But yeah, I know Dame's percentages overall are not, again, they're not consistent, but are the Bucks better with Drew Holiday right now? They make it the big question. Are they better if they don't make that trade? Drew's there.
I don't think they have as many wins, to be honest with you. And I think a lot of that is because they eased Chris Middleton in. They eased, that 20-minute restriction, and that's kind of gone off the wayside. I think it's that question, do they have as many wins? No, but are they better? I don't know if they are, though, either. I don't know. That's how much of a difference is Drew Holiday in terms of games if we swap those two out right now? Sure. I think they probably have a few more losses, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, and that's just my feeling, because I go back to how they started off the season easing Middleton in. Middleton's not going to be your second scorer, so where's that scoring going to come from? Okay, you got Brook Lopez, but is that necessarily a good thing? And this is not a knock on Brook, but is that necessarily a good thing that Brook Lopez has got to be your second leading scorer then? And I don't think that's a scenario you want to be in at that point in time.
Apparently, Drew Holiday was not playing at the end of the game against OKC last night. If that's, I guess, any indication, then that may be more of a commentary on SGA. That Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is that good, and you need to have the right guy on him, and it's not. So I'm not going to go, oh, what's wrong with Drew Holiday? Well, I mean, and he's also had some injuries as well. So, okay, there's part of that too. But I don't know I don't know how much better or worse they are. I mean, maybe they're better positioned for the playoffs, I guess, perhaps if you're counting defense to be more of a deal. I would rather have Damian Lillard on than Drew Holiday. The clutch performance is what counts more to me. And of course, as I say that, I'm immediately through my mind is going the NBA Finals and seeing Drew Holiday, like the clutch. Was it like the block and the pass against the Suns? You know the play.
Oh yeah, the alley-oop to, or it was a steal,
right?
And then the alley-oop to Giannis. Yeah,
that play, right? Of course. So that goes through your mind. But while that's true, and there are different things that each brought. So it's not exactly a straight comparison of what Drew can do, what Dame can do, but Damian Lillard can perform not all the time, as we're seeing, but a lot of the time he can perform really well in the clutch. I would like to think that the Bucks have enough talent around the rest of the team that can fill in the gaps if Lillard's a little bit off in the playoffs.
I think when you get to the playoffs, I want that second scoring option, that second guy who can create, get his shot. And when you look at this, we know Giannis is number one, but I think by having another guy like Dame, when you get to the postseason, you have another guy who can get his shot off or can get on that hot streak offensively, I think is a bigger benefit than having like a Drew Holiday defensively when it gets to the postseason part, in my opinion.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
As much as defense wins championships, though, I think that's really more of a football thing.
Right.
But it counts, too, for basketball. And without Drew
the play you just talked about, for crying out loud. So
right. Without what Drew Holiday, if Drew Holiday is replaced by, if we're doing like a war sort of thing for basketball, but you're not taking all of the defensive ability of Drew Holiday, you're just taking a comparably talented player. Replace that person for Drew Holiday. Do the Bucks win in 2021? I'm not sure that they do. And that's accounting for some really bad offensive performances from Drew Holiday in the playoffs. That was to the point of like, no, don't you, no! Oh, that happened so many times that June and July.
Oh yeah.
But the defense was so good. I'm glad he was there. And if you put in,
and we had that discussion, how many times was his offense lacking because of his defensive play? Like he was putting so much effort into it.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
But I think that it's almost an unknowable. If Damian Lillard's playing on the 2021 Bucks, do they win that championship? Maybe. The dynamic obviously is a little bit different, but it's possible.
I just wonder if it would have been so much matchup based because that team you had Devin Booker and Chris Paul.
Right.
And I honestly feel like the Suns might have won that one.
Yeah, because, who would have shut them down?
Right. That's where Drew Holiday was so important because it was so matchup based.
Right. Of course, also the Bucks didn't have good wing defense.
Right.
They seem to be getting a little bit more of that this year, finally. Andre Jackson Jr., et cetera, are starting to develop that kind of defense, which is what you're going to need going up against, like, the Celtics. Take the top of the West right now. I'll fast forward to like the top three teams: Wolves, Nuggets, Thunder. Against whom would you most wish Drew Holiday was still on the Bucks?
Maybe the Wolves because of Edwards. Maybe because of that.
Because he's not going to be shutting down Jokic.
Nope. You got Alexander with the OKC. That would be the other one. But right. I feel like the other parts that the Bucks could expose, whereas the T-Wolves are a little bit deeper in terms of veteran talent. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So
you need a guy that can occupy there. Yeah, that's true. The Thunder and is going through the MVP odds. last week. And part of the reason why Jokic and Gilgeous-Alexander are as high as they are is because of the points per 100.
Which I'm glad Alexander is finally getting, I mean, I shouldn't say finally, but getting the recognition, because I do feel like he's one of the most overlooked better players in the NBA.
It's finally happening.
Yeah.
Gilgeous-Alexander and Edwards are having their, they're not exactly on the same path of breaking out, but they're both having their breakout years this year. This feels like a bit of a shift in the Western Conference, and in a broader NBA sense, it's really healthy. I love what I'm seeing from these two, and they have different types of games. It's great. Again, that's another one where I, as an NBA fan, love to see the Wolves play the Thunder in a 7-game series. My only fear, of course, is that SGA gets injured like in game 2, and then suddenly it's, well, I wouldn't be fearful of that because then the Wolves win that series. But in an NBA sense, well, that would break it down real fast. Jokic and Gilgeous-Alexander both have really big gaps in their points per 100 when they're on the court for the Nuggets and Thunder, respectively, when they're off the court. If you find a way to shut them down, I wouldn't bother talking about shutting down Jokic. But if you can find a way to shut down SGA, okay, then you got the Thunder. But yeah, the Bucks probably could do that in other ways. Like you said with the Wolves, Gobert's playing so great defensively. Now, how long does that hold through June? I don't know. Towns has figured out something, and I haven't even gotten into everyone else on that team that's contributing in some really good ways. So you might need to try to make it a Towns Gobert game and then hope that Naz Reid doesn't just do Naz Reid things and McDaniels doesn't shut down the other. Yeah. Ugh. Wow.
Speaking of big man defense, though, we got to give a shout out to Brook Lopez, because he is on pace right now to become the first player 35 years or older to average 3 or more blocks per game in NBA history. Wow. This guy, I can't think of another player, and I know I believe he's still the Brooklyn Nets all-time leading scorer, which is awesome. But can you think of another player who has, like, maybe the second half of his career is better than the first half? And he was a first-round pick, and I understand it, but Brook Lopez, since he's been in Milwaukee, has been a fantastic player, more so than and he's had some good statistic numbers. I get it with Brooklyn and such, but Brook Lopez is doing some fantastic things ever since he's been with Milwaukee. And I can't think of another player kind of like that at the back. And I think we're waiting for Brook Lopez to hit that wall, kind of like a running back in the NFL. When's he going to hit that wall? Or a quarterback, when's he going to hit that wall? And really, I mean, okay, yeah, he's averaging 12.8 points per game. You know, it's nothing to brag home about. But defensively, the guy is still producing. He's still going out there.
Trying to look at, like, late bloomers, players who got going later in their career. I mean, you could say that about. You could say that. Well, yeah. I'm having a tough time here because, like, I see Dennis Rodman coming up a lot.
Oh, geez, yeah.
But
he was defensive player of the year with the Pistons.
Right,
so.
He was really. Yeah, I think it's because he was A with the Bulls, B, hair color, all sorts of crazy stuff. And so makes it easy to forget the Pistons era. And he was also playing with Isaiah and Lambeer and Dumars, etc. So it was easy to overlook him. I remember Dennis Rodman with the Pistons in the late 80s, even with all those other players. But then again, I also remember Brook Lopez early in his career too. It's not like Lopez came from, like,
I mean, I remember him and Robin and Stanford, and watching the Twin Towers, if you will. So,
maybe Jimmy Butler.
Ooh, Butler. I think we started to hear Butler more when he was in his at least 20s, though, right?
We did
mid 20s, and that.
It feels like it's ascended though as time has gone along. Like it seems like a bigger leap for Brook Lopez. That's maybe the difference there. Whereas, I mean, with Butler, I mean, you remember the Wolves season, and how much that was going to change Minnesota, and they were much better that year than Philly, and so it's not like Jimmy Butler's a new phenomenon, but the whole thing with the Heat seems to be more recent. Of, oh my gosh, what's he doing now?
Right,
yeah, that's a new thing.
But yeah, Brook Lopez could be making some history.
I think so.
Right now,
I think it's possible.
Absolutely. So, But tonight's game again, 6 p.m. tip-off, Bucks Pacers. You can catch that 105.1 FM, 790 AM. We got to take a quick break and then stock reports. All right. You can play along with us. Send us your stock reports, whose stock is rising and whose stock is falling. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more after these quick words. Stock reports are due. Whose stock is rising and whose stock is falling? Lucas, let's start with stock faller. Who do you got?
Stock faller is the bowl season.
The Bulls season.
The bowl season. All the non-college football playoff bowls.
Oh, bowl season. I thought you were talking like Chicago Bulls season.
Well, I mean, that's isn't that just fallen as a rule at this point?
Oh.
I mean, this all was crystallized with what happened in the Orange Bowl, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I was tempted to say Florida State. Like, I almost want to do a second stock faller and just say, like, that whole thing just not acquitted well. I mean, all the complaining, and now we're gonna have state investigations and but then everyone leaves, and but we're still gonna be national champions if we're undefeated, and then they lose 63-3. Like, there's just so much stupid involved with that. But maybe the bowls are antiquated. And also, we don't need to have 42, 43 bowl games. I was thinking the other day, like, hang on a second. When I started following college football, I was a little bit later into college football compared to, like, most of the other sports. For whatever reason, I didn't quite connect until I was in, like, 10th grade. Which coincidentally was the year the Badgers went to the Rose Bowl. That's when I really started to follow, like, the Bulls. And I'm like, hang on. There weren't that many back then, right? Correct. There were, like, 16 up into there was maybe, like, one new one every 1 to 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
And then the acceleration, you can go the Wikipedia list of bowl games, and you could see beginning in the late 90s, that's when you start getting like the Humanitarian Bowl with a blue turf. That's when we first collectively all learned about Boise State and the Blue Turf Bowl. And then we learned about Boise State as a team. And then the GalleryFurniture.com Bowl, and all this stuff starts happening, and that leads us to where we're at now. That's not a long-standing, centuries-old tradition. This is a fairly new thing because ESPN realized that people will watch college football and they can make money off of it. That's all it is. So we can get rid of that, and it's fine. I mean, I guess if everyone is collectively okay with watching teams that don't have the players that they're used to watching throughout the season, playing in the Camellia Bowl involving Western Kentucky and Utah State, and if that rates well, then let's not complain and fine. It's just football, and we're watching it because we're used to seeing football on TV, and let it be as that. Or kill off that system entirely and focus totally on the playoffs, and the bowl games are gone. Or if we're really concerned with keeping the hardcore heritage bowls that aren't part of like the New Year's Six, which I know that's even going to change, but like the Sun Bowl or the Gator Bowl, somehow find some way to adapt them into the playoff. Or if we're looking really big picture, long term, and there's going to be a super conference probably going to happen, okay, then maybe take some of those bowls and turn them into like championship rounds for all the rest of the teams, the Purdue's and Minnesotas of the world that won't be in the super conference. That could be their national championship. I don't know, something. But all these opt-outs and transfers, and fine, the players can transfer. It's annoying from a storyline point of view because the players are bouncing all over the place, but they should have the right to do that. If coaches can do that, players can do that too. Fine. Mm-hmm. But I have a tough time really getting in on these bowl games because, again, the story of the season has immediately changed for a lot of these schools.
Well, it goes back to, I mean, we might as well do a little sports vigilante here, the whole transfer portal, debates. When I know, was it Rick Neuheisel yesterday was on DP show talking about how they got to change the date for that after the bowl season for that. And I know there's other issues that come up with that because enrollment and all that fun stuff.
Yeah,
that's related to that.
I think that's that makes sense in the bowl sense. On the other hand, the bowl game is ultimately an exhibition game. I mean, if you think about it, we're basically playing a preseason in the postseason.
But here's the other part of that though too, with the Florida State thing. Are those kids all opting out if the playoff was expanded? Probably not, right?
No, gosh, not at all. And it's not 63-3. I do think a full Florida State without their quarterbacks still gets beaten by Georgia because I still think Florida State was not one of the 4 best teams when the season was done. That's why you have a committee. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, if it's just based on record, if we're going to be outraged about the about them being, I'm going to go back to the argument from early December, but if we're going to be outraged about an undefeated team not getting in, well, then let's not have a committee. Let's just go based solely on record, and the teams that are undefeated all get in. And then be like the pros and do the next level tiebreakers of strength of schedule, performance against comparable, all of that sort of stuff. Then we don't have to worry about that. Also, we have 5 Power 5 conferences, 4 spots. At some point, there could well have been a team getting out, not getting in. It's okay. Like the argument doesn't entirely hold up.
Right.
That Florida State simply was not one of the best 4 teams. Had they all played, they still would not have been one of the best 4 teams.
Mm-hmm. I'll just do my stock follower quickly because a lot doesn't need to be said about it, but I will just go with the Carolina Panthers organization as a whole. Their owner got fined $300,000, David Tepper. Everybody probably saw the video at this point, him chucking a drink into the stands at a fan. If I was like Ben Johnson I don't know if you heard this from a few weeks ago, there was a report that Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Lions, apparently his team was telling prospective teams who were looking at him as a head coach, like $10 to $15 million per year was what he was asking. Yeah, like it was a lot. I would be surprised if the Panthers would be willing to do that, but I don't know if I'm a top tier, coaching candidate, I don't know if I want to go to Carolina and mess with that whole situation. So stock down. I'm sorry, Carolina. They got Bryce Young last year. They're all pumped up and all. It's falling down big time. Yeah. It's not a good situation.
Funny thing is, I could totally see David Tepper paying $15 million a year and then firing Ben Johnson halfway through his second season.
Yep. 100%.
And he's got enough money, he'd do it too. He's like, whatever, and just keep screwing up that franchise.
If I was a coach looking for my first head coaching spot, I would probably ignore Carolina right now.
Yeah.
So
that is a must. And that saying something with like the quality of a couple of those organizations, like we talked about the Jets or the Cardinals, but I don't want anything to do with the Panthers right now.
Right.
No.
Stock riser.
Lamar Jackson.
Wow. You know what? Really quick with Lamar.
Yeah.
3. He's tied for the most perfect QB rating. He's got 3 of them. I saw this statistic yesterday. For all the people, Bill Polian, who thought he shouldn't play quarterback. The guy, I mean, kudos to the Ravens, though, too, for putting him in a position to succeed.
Yes.
So, but go ahead.
And adjusting his method of play this year. Not as much running. He's more of a traditional kind of quarterback this year against high-quality opponents. That's been the biggest knock on Lamar Jackson besides injury, is that when you're playing really good teams, how are you going to do? And I'm really talking about the playoffs. That is to be determined. So, I mean, if they end up playing, you could totally see the Browns potentially winning a wild card game, going to Baltimore. Joe Flacco goes in, throws like 4 touchdowns. Lamar Jackson throws 2 picks. Oh, my gosh. I don't know if I'm ready for that.
I am. I'm ready for Joe Flacco to go in there and beat the Ravens.
You know what? With the exception of Lamar Jackson, because I do want the Lamar Jackson can't succeed in the playoffs narrative to end.
Yep.
And some of it's also not fair to him because oftentimes he's been injured. Well, you can't end the narrative if you're not even able to play. But I do like the whole Joe Flacco thing. I hope both can coexist, that they don't have to play each other. But Lamar Jackson, I mean, I could also say Joe Flacco's a stock riser because of everything that's been going right. But Lamar's got the MVP.
Yeah, I think that sign sealed deliver now.
Yeah, this is sublime quarterback play. And again, if they need him to run, he can. He doesn't need to do that. He's finding guys. He's getting stuff open for the likes of Isaiah Likely, who comes in and takes over Mark Andrews. This is also on the Raven organization. That by the opposite of the Jets and Panthers and Cardinals, if you chose an organization where you want to work, oh gosh, the Ravens are an attractive job.
Yep.
Just somewhere within the organization, they're always competitive. And they did a good job with Lamar. Lamar bet on himself, and it's working out. I love it when players bet on themselves and put some risk involved, and then they do it. That's great. So hardcore stock riser.
I got really 2 quick stock risers. Quick. One, I'm going to go with the national championship on Monday. I am really pumped for that matchup between Michigan and Washington. It's something different, right? You got two different styles of teams defensively, Michigan, Washington. Michael Penix Jr., I think his stock is going to rise big time in the draft rankings now. Dude can throw a nice deep ball. My second one, give him a 10. He has hit the 10-meter. The Jordan Love-o-meter is at a 10 right now.
Wow.
He's there.
He's on the Mount Rushmore with Favre and Rodgers.
He's at that point where I thought about, okay, is my next jersey a Jordan Love now? I thought about it.
Ooh.
So I'm going to the game on Sunday.
Ooh.
I thought about it. I'm not going to pull the trigger yet this year, but I thought about it.
Probably a safe call, but okay.
Jordan Love's at a 10 right now.
Wow.
He got there.
Retire the number already, pre-retire?
Hudson's already been asking. You think Jordan Love's number is going to get retired? He's on this retired number kick right now. He's asking questions about all it. Like now he's asking a bunch about Paul Horning.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
wow.
I know.
I'm impressed.
All right, 2 in. We got one more to go. We're going to do some business of sports. Incentives. A lot of, speaking of NFL and Jordan Love, he's got some incentives potentially coming up for this final game. We're going to hit that and kind of explain incentives likely to be achieved and incentives not likely to be achieved. What the heck does that mean? We'll tell you. Third hour kicking off this morning. Big thanks for all of you tuning in wherever, however you may be tuning in. Hey, quick, before we get to our business and sports, I did forget one more stock faller.
Yes.
The baseball hot stove season stinks right now. There's not a lot going on.
I was expecting more.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it was white hot when Ohtani signed and Yamamoto signed, and
then it's like
I'm still
nothing.
waiting. Like where's I mean, and last year was big with all the shortstops,
right?
But still, like I'm waiting on Bellinger, ironically a shortstop.
Hader,
yeah,
you know those guys. So
I saw Hader was trending the other day, and I was like, ooh, did he? Oh, nothing.
No,
no, waiting. But hey, remember, was it now 6 years ago? Right about this time, we're like, what's going to happen? Anything, kaboom in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Not saying that's going to happen again and the Brewers are going to make some wild move. It would be nice if that happened. I do think, though, this actually relates to, I did a whole stock fallers of the year thing last week, and one of them were small market baseball teams, in large part because of the RSN situation. It's a short-term thing. It's going to get figured out. I don't know when, but right now that's part of the reason why the Twins came out and said, we're cutting payroll for next year, because they're not entirely sure how the whole Bally Sports North thing is going to work. Brewers are going to be in a similar boat in the near term. I don't think a lot of those teams can really, like, you can't get a team like a Brewers going like, let's take a risk and let's spend. They don't really know how much money they're going to have right now. I think that's keeping the market down. That's probably suppressing free agency at the moment, trades and such for now. And again, it's a temporary thing. It'll get resolved. It'll finally lead to the end of the blackout rules eventually. But we're going through a fallow time right now, and that's coming out more viscerally in the hot stove being on simmer right now.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Wednesdays, just past 8 o'clock, we do a little segment we like to call Business of Sports, brought to you by Security Financial Bank. So a couple weeks ago when we were talking about Jair Alexander's contract, and we kind of got on a little bit of a tangent about incentives and not likely to be obtained or not likely to be earned, and likely to be earned, and kind of touched on that a little bit. But since we're heading into the final week of the regular season, we've got players who potentially could earn some of these performance incentives. Preston Smith, I saw, was close. A sack, one more sack, he gets, I think it was $1 million more. If he gets 4 sacks in this game, he gets another $1 million, something like that. Jordan Love's potentially going to be achieving some incentives and that sort of stuff. So I thought it'd be a good time to maybe explain how those work here in a little bit more detail, and how likely to be earned and not likely to be earned affects salary cap. Because when we talk about money and we talk about contracts in the NFL, the number one thing we need to pay attention to is how does it affect salary cap, right? Right? Good. So performance incentives, as I mentioned, are categorized by that likely to be earned and not likely to be earned. How do they determine whether a player's incentives is likely to be earned or not likely to be earned? Well, it's based off of history. If a player reached a performance threshold in the previous year, so the prior season, that incentive is considered to be likely to be earned and counts against the current year's cap. So, for example, let's say Preston Smith last year, I don't know off the top of my head, last year had 5 sacks, okay? And his new contract for this year, he gets an incentive if he gets 5 sacks, 5.5, 6, or whatever, gets $1 million incentive. That would be determined to be a likely to be earned incentive, and that $1 million performance incentive is on this year's cap. If Preston Smith had 5 sacks last year and he gets a bonus for 10 sacks, that would be determined as not likely to be earned. But if he did get that, then that number would have to come off of next year's cap. It would be subtracted off of next year's cap. So that kind of makes sense. He reaches that would go off of next year's cap. So it's if you go back, I'm just kind of reading a little bit more from my notes here. A really good example would be like Geno Smith, right? Remember when Geno Smith just exploded and he reached all those incentives in his contract when he was a starter? A lot of that came off of, it would be like this year's cap, but he signed that new contract and they were able to adjust a lot of that stuff over there too. But if a player reached a performance threshold in the prior year, yes, the incentive is considered likely to be earned and counts against the cap. If a player did not reach the performance threshold in the prior year, it is categorized as a NLTBE, not likely to be earned, and will not count against this year's cap. So another part of this, though, too, is those in-game bonuses. This is where it's a little bit tricky because we hear, like Jair Alexander, let's bring him up again. He lost some money from being suspended, right? In-game bonus. Per game roster bonuses act the same type of way. They act the same type of way. So I'm going to give you kind of it's best to describe it or give you a player comparison, kind of give you a comparison on how this is going to go. Say a player has up to about $500,000 in per game roster bonuses, or about 30,000-ish per game, 500 total, 30,000-ish per game. That is also kind of viewed as like a likely to be earned and a not likely to be earned. So say the player in the previous year was active and played in 13 games in 2022. That is how many of the per game roster bonuses will count against the cap when the new league year starts. So they use how many games a player played in the previous year to use in the per game roster bonuses. So they count for that. If that player is active for more than 13 games, let's say, each additional game will then immediately take off of the current year's cap. So say a player has an in-game bonus or per game bonus, for each game. And say last year he played in 13 of them. This year he played in 16. Well, that's getting that per extra game then is getting taken off the cap. So you ask why some teams have that cushion in the salary cap? It's for stuff like this, right? So when we talk about, well, so-and-so still has $6 million available in salary cap, why aren't they spending it? It's stuff for like this. We talk about emergency funds for maybe bringing in a player in the season, which is true. It's 100% true too, but you got to factor in all these other bonuses with it too. Because if you do have those in-game or those per game, I keep saying in-game, if you do have those per game roster bonuses and you only factored in budgeted, really, right? That's the best way to describe it. You budgeted 13 games for player A, but player A actually played 17. You got to pay off those per game roster bonuses that come off of the cap right away. So it's a little bit tricky. It's a little bit dicey that way. That was something I actually did learn about, that roster game bonus. I wasn't quite sure how that worked, but when I was looking it up this week for this segment, I was like, ooh, that makes that salary cap just a little bit more intriguing.
So does that make it more like give more incentive to basically pull? I'm way, way, way oversimplifying and drawing to something that probably shouldn't be, but a reverse Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
You want your players to play the game. This is very much, and okay, maybe a direct example is it's the opposite of what we see in baseball a lot, where you don't want a player to play so they don't hit their incentive bonuses, or you try to keep a rookie from coming up so they get another year of control. This is the opposite of that, basically.
Mm-hmm.
In effect.
Yeah.
You actually get a financial advantage to your team, but that's also not really hurting the player either.
Right. Which will be interesting. I should look this up too. If Bakhtiari's contract had a per game, I'm assuming it did, had a per game roster bonus because of the amount of games he's missed this year. If he has that per game roster bonus, that gets credited to next year's cap. So that also gets credited for any games. Say his contract was written up for this year in 2023, based off the previous years or whatever, where, it was set up for him to play 14 games, let's say. Well, he's played one. I'd be curious to do a deep dive and actually see that contract, and we only have a few details that are available out there. But Green Bay could get credited for the cap next year based off of the per game roster bonuses there. That's why when you look at Spot Track and over the cap and all that, I think it's a good generalization of how salaries and contracts work, but it doesn't really tell the whole story.
Yeah.
It generalizes a lot. It tells you different bonuses in that, but there's so much other stuff going on. Like, I think Jair, with his suspension, he missed out on a $60,000 payday.
Yeah.
So
probably because of that. Yeah.
Wow.
It's fascinating how that works.
Yeah, and it kind of gives you a little bit of a background too, of just, it's not as easy as like sign so and so for 5 years and $100 million and is $20 million per year. No, it's very, I don't know what is the best word to describe it, kind of like schematic in a way of how you put together a contract for a player, like
yeah,
game planning it a little bit.
There's a lot of there. Yeah, I'm thinking of a labyrinth here for some reason. To try to map out, but then that also factors in: do you want this guy playing necessarily? Because if it doesn't match what you have for the team, then you have to play him,
right?
To help out with you. Because you could have the general manager saying, play this guy so this can up with the cap. And the coach like, no, he's not playing that well. We can't have him. So what do you do there? That's more of an extreme. Usually I'm presuming a lot of these players that have these situations are in a good, like they're talented enough you would want them starting all 17 games.
Right.
Going into a season.
Right.
Barring some unexpected thing where they completely collapsed. So I think you should be fine anyway, I think.
Yeah. Again, there's so many different ways I think you can word a contract. Like, so say David Bakhtiari gets released, which I think he is going to get released by Green Bay after this year. I don't think that's breaking news or anything like that.
Right.
But say he goes to the Jets, then, because everybody's just going to assume he's going to go to the Jets. I'd be really curious to see that. Because I think a lot of people are just going to assume it's going to be a very incentive-based contract. And that's the other thing that I think a lot of people just generalize. A lot of us kind of generalize when we talk about this, is like, give so-and-so an incentive-based contract. Well, that's such an easy way to say something. You know what I mean? Like, generalize it. But for Bakhtiari's case, I think that will be a very incentive-heavy contract. Per game incentive-heavy contract.
Yeah.
To hit those milestones. Because it's such an unknown. Right. He looked good in week 1, right? He played the whole game. And that was it. Didn't even know anything was wrong until, he's not playing in Atlanta. Is it because of the turf? Nope. It's because his knee couldn't hold up after 1 game. I mean, that's going to be an interesting contract whoever decides to sign him, which I think everybody assumes it's going to be the Jets, including myself. But that one will be very interesting. I'll be interested to see how that is laid out in terms of incentives for him.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of them.
A lot.
And rightfully so. And he's got to expect that too, right? I mean, he's got to expect that.
Well, and let's say he's brought in by the Jets with the presumption being all things Aaron Rodgers. So if Aaron Rodgers gets injured once again in week 1 and has to miss 10 games of the season, the Jets going to even want to play him at that point? Or are they only playing him because he's Aaron Rodgers' guy? And otherwise they're like, no, we don't want to play him now. And not just in part because they figure there's a chemistry. And that chemistry is gone without that's not saying Bakhtiari can't play without Aaron Rodgers, obviously, but they're bringing him in because of chemistry. That he should be able to perform well. Rodgers perform well. All of that helps the team overall. So if he's not there, if Rodgers is not there, then why play Bakhtiari? And suddenly I could see a scenario where the Jets don't play him as much. Now, if it's the choice between Bakhtiari or you basically have no one playing, they're going to play David Bakhtiari, obviously. But if it's really just for the sake of helping out Aaron Rodgers' ability, then he's probably getting benched. It's probably not a lot happening there.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Wow.
It really is. And I know that Russell Wilson one too. I know it was a little bit of old news at this point in time, but that thing is a mess too. That was that whole year of contracts, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, those type of contracts where it's just like, what are you guys doing with some of this stuff? Like, so for Russell, if they cut him, that results in an $85 million cap charge. $85 million cap charge. Plus $39 million in guaranteed money for 2024. They can split that up. If they keep him, it's a cap number of more than $90 million over 2 seasons, plus the $37 million due in 2025. That's a lot of money to try to figure out with your quarterback position right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so many different avenues with this thing that it's why do teams do this sometimes?
It probably is a matter of standards that other teams have done it. So you got to find some way to top that because some other team will do that. So if you're going to bring this guy in, the agent's saying, well, you got to put this incentive in and this incentive in and this incentive in, or we're not coming.
Mm-hmm.
May seem ridiculous, but they won't come.
Right.
There is someone else who will play or will pay that and come up with all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So no, you've got to do it.
Yeah.
I think you almost have to kind of be in the rhythm of it all. I think there's a requirement. It might be written into the bylaws of the show that we have to mention Andrew Brandt every time we do this. But I was listening to his top 10, his latest pod, and he's doing like the top 10 stories of the year. And the way he starts rattling through some of the stuff, I mean, obviously this is all like secondhand, but he starts referring to 224, 236. Like, oh, those are years, 2024, 2036. Like, okay, I'm getting a bit of an insight into like where the jargon, I'm making a bit of a leap here, but I'm like, okay, he's worked these sorts of things. This becomes all like, this is all laid out. All this makes sense. The whole Julia Roberts numbers GIF you've seen. That's all like locked in with the folks that do these negotiations. They know all of that stuff. They know all the possible incentives. It's all secondhand knowledge to them. It's like you breaking down 7th round potential draft picks for the Packers. They know this stuff and they can go, yeah, sure, we'll have an incentive for week 15 if it gets to 43 yards and 32 snaps and they can, yeah, and they'll do it. And if they don't, someone else will.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're paid to do that stuff. For us fans, oh my gosh, what, huh? But we're also not paid to do that.
Yeah. So I mean, the Wilson thing it's kind of confusing to follow along too. So he was guaranteed to make $39 million next year, and his contract, it's the whole injury clause thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
His contract includes an injury clause that fully guarantees his $37 million salary in 2025 if he passes a physical in March. By benching Wilson, the Broncos pretty much took the injury guarantee out of play. His 2025 salary is guaranteed if he is on the roster of the 5th day of the 2024 league season. Kind of sounds similar to a lot of Rodgers contracts. Remember we were talking about that last year?
Mm-hmm.
A little bit with, well, if he's on the roster at this point in time, it's like boom, boom, boom. But so obviously it's clear that Russell Wilson won't be in Denver next year.
No.
Right?
No.
So
he will not.
And that's where, like, when you hear like these injury clause, like when I first heard that, I'm like, oh, does that mean if he gets hurt, he gets like the insurance sort of thing? But it's a little bit different if he passes that physical in March and then his salary in 2025 and 2024 all becomes guaranteed. It's very similar to like a lot of Rodgers contracts that we talked about last year, certain dates where 2026 then became guaranteed and all that. It got really confusing there. Teams will do whatever it takes to get these quarterbacks, I think, signed up at a certain point.
Yes. Ultimately,
And Green Bay was guilty of doing that too.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of years ago.
They created that. I mean, they were part of it, but they created that contract.
Mm-hmm.
It takes two to tango, and they were good with it. So,
right.
Okay.
Yep.
It's easier for them now, but at some point you could see it happening with, I mean, I don't think we're going to end up with reverse incentives, cap hit goes up, all of that. We're not going to get another weird Rodgers contract with the Packers. But Jordan Love keeps progressing. Or even if Jordan Love doesn't progress and he's just a really good quarterback going forward, there are going to be some complicated contract things coming down the road.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's easy right now.
Yep. All right. Speaking of a little green and gold, let's take a quick break. It is Bears week, winning in. Let's get back to a little bit more football talk. But first, quick break. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Really quick, I misspoke. I wanted to clear up the Russell Wilson thing. The injury clause was if he got hurt. I misspoke on that. Wanted to clear that up in case everybody was like, "You're an idiot." So I am an idiot, but
not for that reason.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it was. That's why big reason why they benched him too, so he wouldn't get hurt and then collect on $37 million. So wanted to clear that up. And Russell has come out and said he refused to change that because, as he said, "quote this game's physical." So you are right.
Yes, that's facts.
Let's ride. Sorry, I had to throw that in there.
I did see someone. I think it was from the Daily Norseman said, like, please do not sign Russell Wilson over in for the Vikings next season, if only because he's going to find some way to make every Viking fan hate Skull because he's going to come up with some catchphrase.
Oh, please!
I know Packer fans are hoping for it.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it's going to be. I can't even think of it. He would do it, and then we'd hate it after about 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You want Russell Wilson to go to Minnesota, right?
For that, yes. No, then it just become more annoying because he would incorporate that horn, and that horn's already annoying. And I think he would incorporate it more and it just become more annoying. But it might be more annoying than for you guys too. So I guess that's a win-win.
Yeah, so. it's just bad across the board.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of which, did your coach overthink the quarterback situation on Sunday night? I feel like he did.
He might have. I mean, to a certain, I get it. There's playoff potential. This Vikings team is not winning the Super Bowl this year. How many times have I said that?
Mm-hmm.
I guess give him a shot. This is sort of like free games here, so let's see. And it wasn't working, and I think now we clearly know that there are 3 quarterbacks that can actually play football for the Vikings, none of whom should be a starting quarterback next year. Good. So now what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
So let's clear that up.
Yeah.
I mean, Jaron Hall could get better at some point. It's not Nick Mullins, not Joshua Dobbs. It's almost certainly not going to be Jaron Hall if you want to be competitive next year. If next year is the end of the competitive rebuild, I'm not sure if that's where Adolfo Menz is at, but if next year is supposed to be, hey, maybe we could be a Super Bowl contender. Well, you need to have a legit quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And that I can't believe this is happening. But Kirk Cousins is like the favorite of Vikings fans right now. He has never been more popular. Just a little bit of the whole, hey, the backup is always the most popular guy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of true. I mean, him doing the whole Kirko chains thing with the horn, and people loved that. Even I liked that. Like, what is going on here? A year and a half ago, there's no way you're seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
And my gosh, he has really done a turnaround. A lot of that had to do with him performing actually pretty well this season. And it's pretty clear how the Vikings have tailed off since he was injured. Jordan Addison suddenly really quiet. Well, a lot of that has to do with who's throwing him the ball. O'Connell may have overthought it somewhat.
No, I think he did a lot.
How so?
I think in that situation when you have a win and potentially control your destiny and you hand the ball off to a rookie quarterback in a division game, in a primetime game, I don't know if that was the best call at that point in time. Yeah, Nick Mullins throws the – I mean, I honestly feel like was part of the decision be like, hey, Joe Barry struggled against Tommy DeVito and all that sort of stuff. We're going to throw a new wrinkle in this and see if we can catch them off guard and all that. And it didn't work. It didn't work. I think if it were me, I know hindsight's 20/20, but you've got Justin Jefferson and you've got Addison in there and you've got 2 corners who are – one's a 7th-round rookie playing well, and another one's been pretty much a lifetime practice squad guy. I think I'd want the quarterback that's a little bit more aggressive throwing the ball down the field.
Yeah.
And that was Nick Mullins.
I think it's because of the 4 interceptions, and it seemed to be piling up. I mean, the wounded duck to end the Lions game. My gosh, that was brutal. O'Connell is a patient coach. I think I mentioned that before, where he's which seems ironic given that, well, he went right to Jaron Hall and went right to Nick Mullins. But overall, there seems to be more of a methodology to what he's doing. So that seems to be what, at least how he is as a coach. So I'm going to presume if all indications are that maybe he wanted to try Jaron Hall at some point, and this was maybe the best time to do it. But he's also not going to quick go out and cut some quarterbacks and bring in some other guy to try to get into the playoffs. It's almost like he's thinking next year. And yes, I know playoff potential. He's really thinking about what can we do for 2024.
It's always next year. That's like the state motto for Minnesota sports.
It pretty much
it's always
is.
next year.
It pretty much is. But if you're being real, if you're being real with the Vikings, yes, for this season, it is next year. So you might as well find this out for sure, given that you could be spending how much money potentially on Kirk Cousins? Was it $40 million maybe? I don't know how much you're going to be potentially spending, but it's going to be a lot of money if you're going to do that. Or if not, who? Gosh, not Russell Wilson, but then who else?
Yeah, and I don't know if Nick Mullins would have necessarily made a difference at the beginning of the game for Minnesota anyways,
No.
to be honest with you, because it sure seemed like Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love were just a step ahead of Brian Flores and,
They
chess
were.
match. So
Absolutely. Now, there were also a good number of injuries on that defense, but this was also a well-played offense. I think both applied. Flores couldn't do as much with who they had. The Packers were getting more comfortable with who they had. Not to keep relitigating the last game, but how much, as I was watching this, and I'm trying to figure this out, how much of this was good defensive play and how much of this was the Vikings just can't put anything together? So I think it was a bit of both. Like, I think this was
good defensive play from Green Bay.
Yeah. There was some in there. This was not like Joe Barry disaster game for obvious reasons. Mm-hmm. But I think there was like, is there something, can you go all Herm Edwards, we can build on this?
I know. I mean, it's just one game, but I mean, Green Bay did do something that no other team did since week 2, which was 13 players generated at least one pressure against Minnesota. And the last team to do that was the Colts in week 2. So, I mean, that was different, but I don't think you could play that same style against Justin Fields.
Right.
That sort of stuff there too. So, but I think they went with, okay, we got a young quarterback. What's the age-old thing say? We're going to pressure you like no other and see how you handle that pressure. And Hall couldn't handle that pressure. Let's be real, right?
It was sort of a free. It was sort of a freebie.
Mm-hmm.
Let's try a lot of, not necessarily blitzing, but just go all in on the front line, and we
had corner blitzes for the first time, I think, in forever, maybe since Charles Woodson played, for crying out loud. You had Keyshawn Nixon and guys coming off the edge from the slot spot. Can't remember the last time we saw that at least a couple times in a game.
So that's what it was. It was betting you can't find Justin Jefferson and KJ Osborne and Jordan Addison consistently, and you don't have TJ Hawkinson either.
Yeah.
So we're going to take care of everything, and it worked. Mm-hmm. It did. But like you said, segue, I don't know that that's going to work against Justin Fields.
And I don't think he has that game plan if it's Kirk Cousins in there either.
No,
like you said, because you're doing corner blitzes and all that. Kirk Cousins can find a guy.
Right. Yes. This is a way closer game. The Packers might have won it anyway, but it's way different. Okay. So since this is kind of a thing this week, where are you? And take out your Packer fandom, because I think I know what the answer would be if it's that. From an NFL point of view, should the Bears move on from Justin Fields? That's clearly the question of the week I'm seeing all over the place.
I am going to say, that's so tough.
Packer fan, Viking fan, of course, you're like,
I saw this tweet that made me really nervous if this was going to happen. I saw this tweet that DJ Moore, and I get Justin Fields because of the Ohio State connection, but DJ Moore and Justin Fields are close friends with Marvin Harrison Jr.
Oh.
And then I'm like, oh, God, I really don't want to see that.
Oh.
Could I see that happening now? I could see that happening. I really could see that happening.
That's not being talked about much either. It seems to be an either-or proposition. You trade Fields and go all in on the new quarterback, or you get a massive, massive haul, which would probably negate being able to get Harrison. Probably.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking much about Marvin.
I think you stick with Fields, to be honest with you. I think you do. I think you need to. I think that Not to say he's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback or anything like that, but I think you start to find what he can do well, utilize that. Yes, he's had an up and down year. I mean, it wasn't that long ago he stunk against the Browns, but that Browns defense is really good, right? It's really good. I think he can be a starting quarterback in this league if the coaching staff can put him in the right position. And if you surround him with talent, he's got DJ Moore over there. You get him a tight end, you get him some more offensive line help. I think you can do some stuff. Yeah. I look at Baltimore and how we just talked about Lamar Jackson, right? How they utilize him. Todd Monken coming in there has done a wonderful job. Greg Roman before that, when Lamar won his first MVP, was doing a really good job. They went from Joe Flacco, who can't run, to Lamar Jackson, for crying out loud. And they did a really good job, but they weren't trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Justin Fields is not going to be a pure pocket, stand in the pocket the whole time, passing quarterback. You got to utilize his legs. You have to. You just got to do it. So I think as long as Luke Getsy, if he's going to remain as the offensive coordinator, if they can utilize that and be creative, like I feel like you can be creative with Justin Fields and you have DJ Moore, you can create some mismatches. You just got to be willing to do that, not play it safe all the time.
Yeah.
I think if you keep Fields and you've got 2 top 10 picks, you could do something. You could really do something.
You have to feel so confident that Caleb Williams or Drake May is going to be better.
Yeah.
And very quickly. Because if the Bears are in win now mode for 2024, which I'm seeing some of that as well, you're going to win now with
well, and how much does this I think if you were I honestly feel like if they weren't going to keep Matt Eberflus, which now it sounds like they're going to keep Matt Eberflus. If you're not keeping Matt Eberflus, then you draft a quarterback. But if you're keeping Matt Eberflus, I think that means they're keeping Fields.
Yeah.
Because if you're bringing in a rookie quarterback, you're essentially starting over. So if you're starting over, wouldn't you just start over with a new head coach?
You probably would. I mean, unless the new coach, unless it's a coach that can better utilize Justin Fields and can do more with the team. There's that option too. Or gosh, there was the ESPN article that said, well, could they do both? Could they keep Justin Fields and draft a quarterback?
Oh gosh. Yeah.
I mean, they could. I don't know why you would do that.
But the thing is, too, is that I was reading as well, like the haul for the number 1 pick would be more than what they got last year for the number 1 pick.
Right. So
that's pretty darn tempting.
And you may not get Marvin Harrison Jr., but you may be able to shore up a whole lot of positions.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the Bears did pretty well last year off season. I think the Bears could, gosh, suddenly the NFC North looks freakishly, but there's a potential where all 4 teams, you can make a case that they're like a 3 seed next year under certain circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Vikings really have to figure out quarterback to be in that discussion. The Lions, of course, are going to be there. The Packers sure are trending that way. And again, the Bears, if they develop well, look, if they get rid of Fields and they draft a quarterback, they're taking a step back in the near term. For long term, it may be the right move. Near term, no. Mm-hmm. It just isn't. I got the impression reading some of those quotes in that same article that the players are like, come on, are we going to start over again?
Right.
I feel like there's going to be a bad vibe around the team. And we discovered with the Brewers a couple years ago. Vibes can mean something. I think that would harm the team to a certain extent if they're going to restart with Caleb Williams in there. There's also the part of me that just gets annoyed by the whole, hey, get the next quarterback. You just got to do it because you got to do it. No, you don't have to do it. It does make sense financially. I understand that. But otherwise, don't just do it because you gotta. We're brainwashed into thinking you have to take the number 1 quarterback just cause. No. There's more to the team. The quarterback usually is the most valuable player on a team, but there's more to the team than that. And I do like where the Bears are progressing.
Mm-hmm.
It's annoying from our fandoms, but as a team, I do like how they're getting better. And I think they can be more of a beyond, the we want Fields chance. Okay, fine. That's what the fans say. How is the team actually performing? I think, I don't want to play the Bears right now. How concerned are you about playing the Bears?
I'm nervous.
Yeah.
I'm nervous. I'm not going to be an idiot and say, yeah, we're going to dominate.
Yeah.
Well, I'm nervous. Absolutely. This is a completely different team from week 1 when we last saw them. Green Bay's a little bit different too, but I look at this Bears matchup and with Fields and the way they're playing and Montez Sweat defensively over there. Yeah, heck yeah, I'm nervous. I'm going to the game and I'm still nervous about the thing. I'll probably be a little bit, too confident when I'm there after a few man cave lights. But no, I'm definitely nervous heading into this game. I could see it going either way. I would not be surprised if the Bears beat Green Bay on Sunday. Not be surprised one bit.
Boy, that would. Oh boy, I'll tell you right now, I'm picking the Packers.
Mhm.
I feel pretty good about the Packers winning this one. Not just a general pick. Yeah, like I said, I feel legitimately good about it.
So
But
the Bears,
I think it's going to be a challenge. I think the Bears are going to be game for a while. I think the Packers put them away by somewhere like a third of the way through the fourth quarter. You're like, okay, they got him. But it might take that long to establish it. This is not going to be like the Sunday night game at US Bank Stadium. This will be a closer game for sure, even though it's at Lambeau.
Yeah,
I see Nance Romo on the call.
That's still weird to see CBS getting that call. Nance and Romo for Packers Bears game, but
those of us old enough are like, ooh, old school CBS Packers Bears.
Yeah, yeah. The key though, I think, is going to be Justin Fields and how they utilize him with this game, because I mean, if Tommy Cutlets can run around and do some damage and all that, and Baker Mayfield can go have a perfect quarterback rating in Green Bay, would it surprise you if Fields goes out there, has a couple touchdowns, maybe a rushing one and 250 yards passing? It would not surprise me.
Yeah,
not one bit.
I also,
and Chicago would love nothing more than to end Green Bay's season.
Oh, of course. Of course. I mean,
and since he's saying us and all that, maybe Aaron can fly in for the coin toss or something like that.
Gosh,
I'm joking, people. Come on. But no,
we're taking defense.
Yeah. The Fields thing is it's kind of similar to what the Packers situation was with Love with the whole 5th-year option, right?
Yeah.
Because they got to decide that. And now I saw some talk, could they do a similar type of contract that the Packers did with Love? I mean, do you pick up that option? Could you see the Bears potentially doing something? Again, I'll bring his name up, like how the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson. They traded back up, or your Vikings did with Teddy Bridgewater. They traded back up at the end of the first round because we got so many months yet to the draft. So much stuff can happen. But if there's a quarterback that's kind of falling, they trade back up into the first round or something like that, and they grab that quarterback and they, sit him for the first part. Yeah. I don't know who that quarterback would be off the top of my head, but could that be a scenario?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I could see that happening.
Maybe it's J.J. McCarthy from Michigan.
Just waiting for the.
Yeah, so was I. That's
thing, but yeah. I mean, there seem to be way more. I mean, obviously more quarterback options this year. In the draft.
I don't think Bo Nix will fall down that far, but who knows? I mean, Michael Penix Jr., I think his stock is rising big time right now.
Where's he been? I haven't paid a super close attention to mocks because just on principle, but at this point, where's he been at? Because he's not been talked about in the
Michael Penix.
Yeah,
I just saw one that was done yesterday on CBS Sports at number 5 to the Giants.
Wow. I know players can make massive leaps out of nowhere. That's another reason why I don't pay too much attention to the mocks right now, because stuff can get really strange. I could see that. I mean, now, is Michael Penix Jr. going to have an NFL-style game? Or is this going to be like the Bryce Young? Again, I'm not giving up on Bryce Young yet, but is this like, well, it's going to translate really well? So far, no. Is that the thing? Is that why Penix has not been that high? I mean, I know Michael Penix he's been good, obviously. I remember him being in Indiana. He's been good, but he hasn't been talked about as this potential NFL superstar. So is it just the performance on the field? Is it that he's a winner now? Which that should count for something, I would think.
Yeah, I've also saw looking at so actually it was Jade Daniels at 5. Penix came in at 11 with the Raiders was this latest one.
Huh.
I think for that you've got to depend on the coach. Like I wouldn't mind the Giants one because I think Brian Daboll would actually build an offense around that. I mean, if you can get something out of Daniel Jones, I think you can do some stuff. So
yeah,
with the Michael Penix guy, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah,
I think he could if he goes and has a great national championship game against Michigan. He's going to be a first round pick.
Yeah, agreed.
I think that's going to be the ceiling right there.
Don't know exactly where, but it's somewhere in there for sure.
Yeah, because this one mock draft, this was done. Yeah, day after Christmas. Michael Penix isn't even in there, but Bo Nix is to the Vikings at number 20 on that one. So interesting. All right, we got to take a quick break, and we got some picks to make. Our picks and predicts. A lot of hoops games. We'll hit those up coming up in just a couple minutes. Time for picks and predicts brought to you by the Elbow Room here in Eau Claire. Looking for somewhere maybe to watch some of the games this weekend or maybe the national championship on Monday. Check out the Elbow Room. It's got like watching a ball game in a man cave over there with all the sports memorabilia. Plus, they've got man cave light available. All right, we got hoops games to pick here. I'm going to save the T-Wolves and the Bucks towards the end here. So let's start with, can't believe we're saying this, but hey, they're in the hunt. Orlando visiting Sacramento.
Your Magic.
Yeah, they're struggling right now, though, a little bit. Magic, 19-14 on the season. Sacramento, 19-13 on the season. Sacramento favored. I should say the spread's at 5.5 right now.
I'm taking the Kings.
I'm going to take the Kings, too. Darren Fox averaging 30 a game.
Wow.
Dude.
Wow.
I know, right?
Light the beam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll go Sacramento because it's on the road, and Orlando is 7-10 on the road this year.
Kings have turned it around also as well. They started slow. They're getting back into this now. They're 5 out in the West.
Yeah. Let's go with the Heat visiting the Lakers. The Heat 19-14 on the season. Lakers sitting at 500, 17-17, but they're at home where they are 11-4 at home. Lakers spread is at 5.5.
Jimmy Butler playing?
Jimmy Butler looks like he is out.
Oh,
according to the injury report here.
I'm definitely taking the Lakers.
Yeah, let me just double
Unless
check.
LeBron and Anthony Davis are on for no indication of that. Because we would have heard about that because we know everything Lakers because that's how media works nowadays.
Yeah. So, yeah, Anthony Davis and LeBron are game time decisions, but Jimmy Butler is out. Yep, that's the difference for me. Lakers win, and they easily cover, I think,
for sure.
in this one.
They'll have a good game.
Clippers, Suns. The rivalry we all want. This one is at Phoenix, where they are just 10-9 at home. They're 18-15 on the season, but 10-9 at home. Clippers 20-12, but they are 6-8 on the road. Right now, the Clippers have a 3.5 point favorite.
The Suns have it's not meshing well so far. They got more season to go.
And KD is out for this game.
Yeah. The Clippers, the Kawhi did get injured recently, but I don't think we haven't had the crash yet for them. I'll take LA on the road.
I'm going to take the Clippers too, and I do think they cover, especially with KD out in this game. But yeah, it's not working that great in Phoenix right now.
Yeah. Let's
go Pelicans, T-Wolves. The T-Wolves at home, 24-8 on the road or on the season, 14-1 at home. But you got the Pelicans coming in 8-7, just 8-7 on the season, 20-14 overall. Minnesota 6.5.
I'll take the Timberwolves. They bounced back from the Knicks loss, which I think some of that had to do with the OG acquisition, and he just goes off with his new team. Also, again, the Knicks are a decent team. I know they're 8th, but they're okay. But the Wolves bounce back in this one.
Do they cover 6.5?
Yes,
I think so too.
The Wolves are a great later second half team. When they were big, they were down big to the Knicks, and I see the scores keeps closing and closing. Like, oh my gosh, they're gonna do this again. And then it stalled at about 6 points. They couldn't get over that hump. I think the Wolves can get away and cover in this one. Close, but I think they do.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Wolves, and I think they cover too. Then finally, Bucks and Pacers. Bucks, what?
Yeah,
right. No kidding. Bucks on the road where they are 8-6 so far this season, 24-9 overall. Pacers 18-14, although 3 of those wins all against Milwaukee this year, not counting the play-in. I guess we can count that play-in one because that one did count. Just the championship didn't count.
Yeah.
So 9-7 at home for the Pacers. Bucks 3.5 favorites.
Is it Oscar Tishwebe game ball night for the fans? If I'm the Pacers, I would do something like that. Hand out mini basketballs or something, which I know that could go really south fast. But boy.
Indiana riding a 4-game winning streak right now too, by the way, and they just beat Milwaukee on New Year's Day.
Yeah. You know what? People are going to overreact to this, and they shouldn't. Pacers win.
People are going to overreact that the Pacers have the Bucks number.
Oh, totally. Yes, it's going to be.
They're the new Heat.
Yes, I'm not bothering with social media tonight. I generally am trying to avoid it, and I think I'm doing a good job. But for sure, after this, though, I might actually check in if the Bucks do win and see how Bucks fans react to that. If they can still pull a negative out of it.
Yeah.
Bucks Twitter can get pretty. They're not in a good place in a lot.
If Indiana does win, though, that's going to be the talking point, right? They're the new Heat to the Bucks.
Yes, totally.
So
totally.
I'm going to pick the Bucks though to win. I think Damian bounces back and has himself a game tonight.
Cool.
And they cover, but barely. It's going to be under 10. They cover by single digits. They 3.5. They cover by 4, but it's between 4 and 9.
Yeah.
I'll put that out there.
Okay. I think that seems legit.
Championship odds right now, really quick. According to, well, this was from Barstool, San Francisco 49ers still plus 225. Baltimore plus 325. Guess the two teams tied for third. First of all, would you say Baltimore's got the second best odds? I'd still put them at number one for me. But anyways, that's
I'd stick with San Francisco because of their depth, but
Baltimore just dominated them though.
I know it seems like a toss-up, honestly. So I mean, you could rank them, but it almost doesn't make a difference. Third, I could see it being the Cowboys, but if this is betting odds, then sometimes you get into like other factors, like the pedigree of the team historically. So I'm going to say the Chiefs are tied with the Eagles.
You are wrong. One of them is the Cowboys, plus 800.
Wow.
The other one is a team that's not even in the postseason yet. Buffalo Bills. Tied for the third best odds championship.
Oh, they are kind of the team you don't want to play right now.
Until they maybe lose to Miami and they're not in the postseason.
Right, I know.
Yeah, but
it's going to remind me of the Chargers several years ago when they didn't make the playoffs and they were like the ultimate. You don't want to play them. Couldn't quite get in.
You know what? I was thinking about this really quick, because I'm going to run out of time. But if Green Bay wins and they're in, chances are they're going to face the Cowboys. 2-7, okay? But I think a lot of us would figure Cowboys are going to win that game. Kind of reminiscent maybe of Tampa Bay and Philly a couple years ago when Tampa Bay just waxed Philly, right?
Right. I'm not so sure about that, but yes.
You would think that would get the bad, maybe the Saturday or even a Monday night one. But since it's Packers-Cowboys, I could see it being a Sunday afternoon game. It might be the most boring game, but it's Packers-Cowboys.
It's matchup. It's all the headlines with that.
Yeah, and it's going to annoy the crap out of me. So,
Mike McCarthy versus the Packers.
Oh, McCarthy might get fired if the Packers win that game. Just saying.
Probably.
Bruno. Have a good day. We'll be back tomorrow.